Okay, so we should be live. Might wait just a smidge, maybe a minute or two, see if people actually filter in, so we can get some interaction possibly going. Yeah, we're live. In the meantime, you could just check out the box here. You got actually, this is. I'm already noticing some things about the box here. One, I don't believe there's any actual I might not even need the scissors. Because there's no tape on the the hinge of the box. You just open it up. I'm actually kind of surprised by how small it was, and then again, I don't think I've ever seen the actual NES Classic in person. Hopefully next year I'll be able to find one. And definitely keeping this box, that's just miniaturized nostalgia. So of course the front advertises I think it advertises 6 of the games that are included in here. It of course has the never before released Star Fox 2. We got Super Mario World, Donkey Kong Country, F-Zero, Mario Kart, and Zelda: A Link to the Past. Those are kind of, I suppose, the highlights, or some of the highlights, I guess, for the casual consumer. The recognizable F-Zero, maybe not as much. There hasn't been a F-Zero game. I think it probably would have been better to, honestly, to put Final Fantasy free. Although, again, that'd be confusing for people who, but I'll just say Final Fantasy free, and people would, the average consumer probably would recognize Final Fantasy over F-Zero. Heck, it's a little redundant considering they're also advertising Mario Kart. It's if you want to go for just showing the giving a good demonstration of the variety of games that are on there, I think Final Fantasy 3 would have been better to put on the front than F-Zero. I mean, F-Zero is, I'm sure, an awesome game. I don't think I ever really played it when I was a kid, but it's definitely the more recognizable. I think the only reason maybe it wanted to focus on first party stuff on the front rather than the third party. Heck, even Kirby Superstar would be. Then again, there's already 2 platformers on there, so. Yeah, I guess that's why we put on the cover. I think if I were picking 6 games to put on the cover, obviously Star Fox 2, being the big never before released game on there that's currently exclusive to this. Got to actually check the. Yeah, we don't have anyone watching yet. But yeah, I would put Final Fantasy 3 on the cover, on the front, because that would be, or Street Fighter 2. Okay, even Street Fighter 2 would make some sense. I mean, because we just again in terms of representing, I potentially even replace Donkey Kong Country with Street Fighter 2 and replace F-Zero with Final Fantasy 3. Just as again a means of here's the genres that we're covering. So we would have the sort of space 3D shooter with Star Fox. You have platformers will be represented by Super Mario World. I mean, Donkey Kong Country is like really good and revolutionary, but Super Mario World is like just the bigger thing of the two. Just Mario is despite the fact that Donkey Kong came before Mario, Mario is sort of the more iconic character. So I would probably replace Donkey Kong with Street Fighter. And this is like me being completely unbiased because I'm not even that much of a fighting game fan, and even back in the day I was more Mortal Kombat than Street Fighter. So in terms of I don't think I really played Street Fighter much at all. Like I was a Mortal Kombat guy. But hell, if we're gonna get Mortal Kombat on this thing, it's just interesting. The boxes don't, and none of the box art includes ESRB ratings, which is interesting. Although there is an overall ESRB rating for the whole thing, which is T for teen. Probably, interestingly enough, based on Earthbound, which, again, I think I may have said this before in previous streams, but I'm actually kind of irked by the fact that Earthbound got a T rating when it was re-released. I would think it would get an E10 plus rating. Like, I think the main thing on there was like suggestive themes, and that's pushing it, really pushing it for Earthbound. Like, the only scene that is remotely suggestive is the scene where there's a woman who's a bit scantily clad who lures you into a hotel. And for like any kid who's playing it, they might not get the implications of it, very easily. And that game is just really tame. Like, overall, like, the final boss is a little disturbing looking, and it can be maybe a little upsetting in terms of the way it appears and even the things it says and stuff. But I really don't think it's a T rate. It's worthy of a T rating. If I were Nintendo, I would have challenged that. I mean, you're already, like, even considering just from a business standpoint, you're already in a position where this is kind of a cult game. With a cult following, and you want to make the game open to as many people as possible. And given the fact that like the original game was rated KA, kids to adults, so like that was like the lowest rating back then. They eventually changed the rating to E for everyone, and then they introduced a sort of PG rating with E10 plus, and you think that like they'd either go with E or E10 plus, just updating it to the current system when they re-rated it, and then they just skipped over E10 plus entirely and rated it T for teen, and it doesn't make much sense to me. I would like maybe send them more footage or more context for like what's going on there. I don't know if the ESRB has like any kind of appeal system, but if they do, I would utilize it if I were Nintendo. But they didn't, and like here. It does kind of potentially hinder the appeal of the system a little bit, although I think most parents who get this for the kids are probably going to not care enough that it's rated T. Maybe there could even be some family settings on there. I don't know if there are. That like, at best, you just have to like watch which games your kids are playing on it. Like Castlevania is probably like the most T rating worthy of the games on here. I guess Contra. The Konami games on here are probably the closest to being T rated experiences. And even then, I don't know. I suppose like those two games would be a lot closer to a T rating than Earthbound, by far. I don't know if we're gonna get any watchers live right now. So I might be going through the list and just sort of talking about some of my thoughts on the games, although I haven't really played all of them. I certainly haven't played all of them fully. I think I've seen some footage and Let's Plays of some of them. So just going down the list, we have Contra Free. I think I may have played the original Contra a little bit on the NES back in the day. I don't really remember all that much about it. Like I remember much more about like some of the Let's Plays I watched, and it looks like a really intense action game. Definitely a lot of Giger-esque aliens. I'm probably gonna play it or try to play it a little bit. Donkey Kong Country, definitely played that. I think I got kind of far into the game, but like the minecart level, I think is the most like in terms of like the way I like to play games back then. I wasn't I think platformers, I didn't use many cheat codes of the platformers. Maybe I still did, but you know, with platformers, cheat codes only get you so far because like there's no cheat codes to allow you to float over pits. Although sometimes there can be ones that like will affect the gravity settings and actually allow you to like easily jump over things. But like the minecart, like you can't really use cheat codes at the minecart level. I don't know if there's any like physics cheats that could actually like, allow you to more easily jump over the gaps. But that stage is like the one that sticks out to me as like being especially hard. Earthbound, I owned it, and I sadly I didn't keep the box, but we didn't keep most of the boxes, and I ended up trading it in along with my NES when I was I think probably in college, and I kind of regretted it. You know, now that I have begun to see the value of nostalgia, you know, this is kind of a way to make up for that. The fact that I now own like 3 different copies of Earthbound, including this one. You know, I own it on the Wii U Virtual Console, I own it on the 3DS Virtual Console, and now I have it on this thing. So cool. Final Fantasy 3, I played a little bit on this SNES, I think, but I don't think I really got into it that deeply. I played it on the PS1, maybe a little bit more. I don't think I've ever really played the Game Boy Advance version, but that kind of seems like it's the one to play. I looked at the PC version, which is like a port of the mobile phone version, and I just don't like the updated sprites. Just, I think a lot of people agree with me. The updated sprites just don't look that great. They look like really kind of cartoony, and yeah, it has widescreen support. That's kind of like the only real advantage of it. But I think that even the Game Boy Advance version has a certain degree of a widescreen aspect ratio, or closer to. I had to look at the actual resolution of the Game Boy Advance to compare it to like this NES, to see if it's a little more widescreen than SNES. I think it might be. F-Zero, I don't think I played that game at all. I played some racing games. I think Top Gear, I think, was the main one that I recall playing. Of course, Mario Kart, which is also on here, but we haven't gotten down that far yet. I don't remember playing any F-Zero games, actually. It looks like it's pretty fun. So I'm probably gonna try most of the games on here. I'll probably do some kind of live stream of them. Kirby Dream Course. I don't think I played any Kirby games on on the SNES. Like not even Dreamland free. I don't think, which is surprising because I like my aunt also had a Super Nintendo and she had like the Kirby games on the Game Boy and on the NES, but I don't think she ever got the. I don't think I was even aware that there was a Kirby Dreamland free, or even a Kirby Dreamland 2, actually, for that matter. I think I just lost track of the Kirby franchise. I was more familiar with the Dream Course and maybe Superstar. I might have had Superstar. If I could recall that we may have had Superstar. Which is also on here. I played that fairly comprehensively on the Wii Virtual Console, and then now I have it on the Wii U Virtual Console. Dream Course I don't think I played at all. It's supposedly pretty good, so I'll definitely give that a try. Mega Man X I think I played. I rented it once, and I'm not sure if I got very far into it. It's definitely a good game for people who are into those kind of games. Star Fox, I don't know if I ever actually played it back in the day. It may have been one of the more expensive games to get, so but I think I may have played it a little bit like when I was in college because we had like a Super Nintendo in my drama teacher's office, and I think I don't know if I played it myself, but I think I played Star Fox 64 probably a little bit more than I played Star Fox, and even then I don't remember much of it. I think we rented a N64 at one point and a few different games. I think I had Zelda, Ocarina of Time, and I think maybe Star Fox at some point. And I think I played more of Ocarina of Time than Star Fox. Anyway, let's see. I don't think they're even listing Star Fox 2 on the back, like in terms of like just the overall list, which is interesting. But I don't think it's even pictured on the back. I mean, granted, there was no like box art really made for Star Fox 2. Although I'm not sure, I'd be surprised if someone actually, if they actually did create some kind of box art. Maybe it just never got that far though. I mean, it got pretty far in development, far enough that they feel confident to release it on this thing. And supposedly it's an even more complete. Oh yeah, it's mentioned like down here. You had to complete the first stage of Star Fox, which I don't know how to feel about that. Like, because I'm actually a little more interested in playing Star Fox 2 than the original Star Fox, but. Well, I thought to play the original Star Fox at least a little bit. I probably was going to anyway. Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Hyper Fighting. Not sure about there's like 3 different iterations of Street Fighter on the console, and I think this is like the middle one. Although I think each of them has a slightly different roster, so so the third installment might have maybe a larger roster overall, but might be missing some characters. I don't know. I have to actually. I don't care enough to necessarily like look up comparisons of like what features are different in each of the 3 incarnations of Street Fighter 2 on the SNES. So there's something you can tell me in the comments. You know, maybe why they went with this version over the other 2. Super Castlevania 4. That's a game I have. You know, I don't think I really ever got into Castlevania as a kid. Again, I'm gonna give it a try. Like there's maybe only. I think I skipped over Secret of Mana. I think I played it a little bit. I don't know if I ever actually. I may have owned it at one point, but I can't remember. It's definitely a good game. Like I played a little bit of it on the Wii Virtual Console. I think I maybe even played it on my smartphone a little bit. So it's a good game. I definitely played most recently Sega SFC Free, which I need to resume at some point. Maybe if once they get like a hack for this, and depending on how easy it is to do, I could potentially put Sega SFC Free on it. Amongst other games. So Super Castlevania 4, never really got into that series, but I think I played it a little bit, like in an emulator at one point. Super Ghouls and Ghosts, I don't think I've really played any of them. I think I may have played a demo of like one of the newer ones, like on the PlayStation or PlayStation 2. I think there was like a either Ghouls and Ghosts or like a spin-off type thing. Cause I remember like it was a guy who like starts out in his underwear and like or like when he loses his life he is down into his underwear or something. Anyway, haven't really played much of that. Super Mario Kart, played a lot of that game. That's definitely like one of the games I remember from being a kid. 90s. Super Mario RPG definitely played a fair amount. Probably one of the first RPGs I played, along with Earthbound and Chrono Trigger. Probably, I think, were probably the main ones that I kind of managed to get into. I don't think I really got into any of the SNES era Final Fantasies that deeply. Maybe I actually got more into the Mystic Quest. Maybe played the Mystic Quest one the most, actually, of the three. Super Mario World, of course, like everyone who's owned a SNES has played Super Mario World, because it's the main pack-in game. Super Metroid, I don't think I ever really played that. I may have played like a demo kiosk at one point, or seen it like a demo kiosk. I played the original Metroid a little bit on the NES. I don't think I ever really got into it that much. So maybe a chance to rectify that. Super Punch Out, I think I played more of Boxing Legends of the Ring, and even then I think it largely just did simulations. Interesting thing, well, I had like a Commodore 64 monitor, and I had like knobs that like you can adjust like saturation and such, and I would like simulate the games, and I would like turn it to black and white, and I thought it looked like almost photorealistic when it was black and white. So I'm not really sure if it would hold up that well graphically, to be honest. But that was a silly thing I did when I was a kid. Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, played a fair amount of that. I think I remember like writing a letter to Nintendo about like to the Nintendo Power like tip line about like how to find the magic mirror, and like I think say, well, it's like much further into the game that you get that. Because I was like, really curious about that game mechanic of having the two different worlds, and I guess I maybe was under the impression like such a key mechanic would be introduced much like earlier into the game, but it's maybe like halfway into the game that you actually start going into the dark world. Then Yoshi's Island, which is interesting. They don't say Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island. It's just Yoshi's Island, and alphabetically it's at the bottom of the list. So yeah, interesting that Star Fox 2 is unlockable, rather than just there. Although it's fairly easy unlockable. So like we're almost 30 minutes in, no one's like really watching. But hey, like if people watch it after the fact, then they'll take long to actually get to the unboxing itself, because I'm just waiting for people to possibly filter in and watch. And yeah, so there's a top. I mean, it's fairly different from what actually kind of stands out a little bit. I guess sore thumb, because at least as far as I'm concerned, because it kind of looks like they're trying to make it like some sort of unified branding with the Nintendo Switch. I don't know. It's well integrated into the overall design of the box. It just, and granted, I haven't even laid on it's on an actual SNES console in a long time. So or well, actually not SNES console, but like SNES official box. So I don't know how I could compare it, and if there's actually like a red, like if the top of it actually has like some sort of a red thing on it. It kind of sounds like, because all the other like sides of the box are black, and then suddenly like it's just red. And even if it's an overlay of like this upper text, it just feels weird. It sticks out. Anyway, let's actually open this sucker. Again, there's no like tape over the hinge, which is kind of refreshing. So it's like get straight to opening it up and not have to worry about potentially like damaging the box a bit when you peel off the sticker, which you have to do. So just pulling it out here, got like a poster maybe, or a manual. I don't know. Looks like it's a poster. I don't know where I put it up. I have to wait until I get my own place so I can actually have. Yeah, this is a poster. Now you're playing with superpower. It's a combination poster and manual, like safety information manual. On the back you have the like manual information, kind of in all different languages, probably French and Spanish. And I wonder if it's actually like based off of. I wouldn't be surprised if this is actually like literally based on like one of the posters, like for the original Super Nintendo. Maybe you got like Nintendo Power, or even like just as a store promotional poster. Super Mario World, Super Metroid, Super Mario Kart, Star Fox, and F-Zero, and A Link to the Past. It's probably later into the console's life that this would have been put up, because I think Star Fox is probably the newest game on here. It's either like a reprint of an actual poster, which it could be, or it's definitely altered because it has a copyright 2017, but or just like done in that style. If someone can tell me in the comments, like if this is actually based off of, and it have a separate warranty booklet, which doesn't have a poster printed on the back, sadly. Probably says don't open it up and install additional games on it, because they'll avoid the warranty. Another thing you think about, like whether or not that is probably under warranty. The warranty shall not apply if this product is used with products not sold or licensed by Nintendo, including but not limited to non-licensed game enhancement and copier devices, adapters, software, power supplies. Is used for commercial purposes, including rental, which is interesting. It's modified or tampered with. Yeah, so It's damaged by negligence, accident, unreasonable use, or by other causes unrelated to defective materials or workmanship. Yeah. So, this is probably. I can't actually just remove the compartment. Yeah, we have this compartment which probably has the console itself. I imagine our tiny little thing that can fit in the palm of our hand. Actually pretty faithful, like you have the actual power thing you can move, of course resetting probably takes you back to the title screen. Of course the eject thing doesn't do anything. I'm actually kind of wondering what they'd be doing. I think I saw like in some videos, but you know, to have like the controller ports look authentic. I think you, if I remember correctly, you kind of they're more like hatches for the actual. A little hard to, but again I'm like, oh, okay, so it's a single hatch, and you pull that down, and then you have the actual nunchuck. Kind of like pops down and out. So that's neat. We got our AC adapter. Looks like it's USB maybe. Yeah, so if it gets like powered by USB. That's interesting. Like the compartment that the console comes in is just like a fold-out thing. We got our controllers here probably. We're getting into all the cables. It's a probably micro USB. Probably it's the newest format, or maybe USB-C. Although I don't think it would be USB-C because I mean, it could be, but like I think the idea of USB-C is that it has like charging capabilities, which you wouldn't really need, like unless there's more to the USB-C standard than the capability to charge. I doubt it would be USB-C. I'd probably compare it to like cables from my other devices, I suppose. Let's see if it will actually hook it up. No, this is like disconnect cable and unplug AC adapter when not in use. Which is like when you're not actually using the console, then you just need to unplug it every time. Or they just like recommend you unplug it. Or what it means like you're gonna put it in storage and you should disconnect everything. Maybe. I have no idea where I'll actually plug this in because, yeah. I've got like so much electronics just sitting around. Okay, so I got one of the controllers. It feels, definitely looks and feels like I remember. It's like the ugly purple buttons, but honestly, like as for nostalgia, like I wouldn't have any other way. Like I do agree that like the Famicom buttons look better, but this is just, you know, nostalgia kind of wins out. I think that's what they're kind of banking on when they like I don't know if they even came to like an actual decision of like should we like make all the controllers like based off of Famicom. Like it'd be cool if they just like offered the option to like buy like separately like Famicom style controllers. I don't think they're actually making any like official controllers available separately this time because you know it comes with two, which is all you really need. You know, technically. I think they figured like they already had enough trouble like stocking the console itself, let alone the extra controllers. So like just like let's just pack in the extra controller with the system. I can't remember if the original SNES had two controllers or just one packed in with it. I wouldn't be surprised if there were two, because I think they were always kind of a little bit about like, you know, multiplayer on one level or other, like was kind of I think if I set it up on top of my Wii U somehow, or next to it, or near to that, it'll probably this will definitely reach. It'd probably even reach if I had it like on my TV, but then again, I have a fairly small room here, so. Although I had to imagine, like, if this was like, if this was like twice the length of what you got for this NES Classic, then yeah, makes me even more concerned about like what the NES. Although maybe when they re-release, they'll have like the longer cables. I would hope. And apparently this is like exactly the same hardware as the NES. It's just different emulators packed on it. So like potentially with for jailbreaking, you could well, I think they already have like figured out how to play like Genesis and like other games on there as well. So. Like whether or not I do it depends on like how involved it would be. I'd probably focus just on SNES games to start with. Like, I mean, given the fact that these are like, you know, SNES controllers and SNES form factor, I probably would just simply have SNES games. Probably focus on adding things that were like unavailable in the States. Or that I already own on Virtual Console or something. Then we have our, last but not least, our HDMI cable. Really all we have left here, actually. 2 controllers and partridge in a pear tree. This is this might just be standard HDMI, not like a micro HDMI. I have no idea whether or not the USB cable would actually like be like what you would use to. I actually kind of doubt that, because it is supposed to just be like a power cable, so you probably would have to open it up to modify. So I just have cables coming out and all over the place, and it's a big mess. But yeah, it just kind of feels weird because it looks like you know, the eject button should do something. The you know, I should be able to push in the hatch, but like you can't. But it's like kind of convincing. that like you feel like you would be able to. Now, of course, the question is, if you let this sit for a while, will it actually start to turn yellow? Because that's the real question. Like, is it that authentic? It'll turn yellow after a few years. My friend Aaron was like debating whether or not to get one for himself, and he decided not to. We went to GameStop, and actually, I guess he went to Best Buy afterwards and saw there actually still had some at Best Buy. So we could have just gone to Best Buy, like, and not had to stay in not had to stand in line, and two, I could have gotten like reward points for it and everything. So. Missed opportunity, and I'm actually like just a few reward points away from getting a $5 certificate. This probably would have pushed me over the edge, but so like completing like maybe 2 or 3 like reviews of things that I purchased. So I actually might stick the poster in there too, just because I don't have anywhere to put it up. And, I can't remember which direction this went in. Not sure. Oh, it might matter a little bit. Well, let's see. I'll close back up regardless. So that's the unboxing of the SNES Classic. Later we might do an actual much later like play a few games on it. Not sure. I am kind of anxious to keep going with Tales of Graces, but that will definitely be a bit later. Go ahead and put some of the twisty ties in there too, just in case I need to, like, when I finally move out, like I might want to actually put it in the box and like have twisty ties on there to tie up the controllers and such. So it might actually be useful. So it's a pretty nice package. Definitely a good set of games. I kind of wish there were more, but like if they could have just included the entire Donkey Kong trilogy on there, would have been nice. I don't know if there's just extra licensing costs maybe with Rare probably was a deciding factor in just putting the first game in there. But I can be fairly certain that like it was just, you know, the fact that, you know, there's this third party. It's also owned by Microsoft. I'm not sure like what kind of. I also kind of wonder what sort of royalty deals are like involved, because like, yeah, like that. It seems kind of interesting in some ways, because like Donkey Kong Country like is based on their IP, so they own the IP for Donkey Kong and of course Donkey Kong Country, but Rare developed it. So like, but like the Rare that's owned by Microsoft right now is like radically different from the Rare that like existed. It's kind of at this point, like from what everything I understand, it's Rare in name only. So what I kind of wonder is whether it's just like Microsoft that is getting some form of royalties from Donkey Kong Country because they own the company that once developed the game, you know, and they don't like really own the IP, but because they own the company, they would get like a slice of that cake. And even though like they had absolutely nothing to do with it, and like no one very few people under their employ currently had anything to do with it, and if anything, the people who actually developed the game like should receive royalties, from the sale of the SNES Classic. Of course, either way, like it's gonna be something of a deterrent to Nintendo releasing all 3 of the Donkey Kong Country games on this thing. But it would be maybe a little bit less, in some regards anyway, if it were going to the people who actually worked on the game. Because I think that's fair. Like, making sure it goes, but if it just goes to the company, if it just goes to the current incarnation of Rare, then there's, like, again, few people who worked on that game are probably even employed there anymore. So, a lot of them went off to form Playtonic and make a kind of mediocre game in ukulele. From what I've heard, I haven't actually played it, so I couldn't say it, but it seems that, like, people were a little underwhelmed by it, by and large, or at least some people that I follow felt it was kind of underwhelming, and I don't think it's as major controversial a disappointment as Mighty Number 9, though. So there's that. Hopefully, Bloodstained won't end up suffering a similar fate. So anyway, I'm just kind of talking about random things related to it, but yeah, somewhere, well, there was a video of me getting a Super Nintendo for Christmas, and I wish I could find that, maybe even post it on YouTube. It's just to add to the pool of old home videos that probably from various people who just want to put up like these childhood memories of getting their first, getting these game consoles and such, because yeah, I think it was like the last game console that I actually got for Christmas. Like I didn't get an N64, even though I was like really wanting it. We eventually got a PlayStation, and I think in that sense we actually came out on top ultimately, because the PlayStation is by far the better console in terms of just the game library. I mean, there are some great games on N64, and actually we were kind of talking about that while we were actually sitting in line. A little bit like, and I know I could talk about that too, just whether or not we're going to see an N64 Classic. And it seems like maybe it's something of a foregone conclusion, but I'm not really sure about that. And actually, I had to look into the N64's library, but it would be an easy thing, like something for Nintendo, like to put out like the vast majority of the best games on the N64 were first-party games. So they have that, but then there are like a few games that are licensed on some level. GoldenEye almost certainly couldn't be on there without shelling out a bunch of money to a bunch of different parties. Like, they had to like, apparently they own, or at least own, some like partial license to GoldenEye. Like, I don't quite understand it. Like, if anyone could explain in the comments, potentially if they have any further insight into the rights issues surrounding GoldenEye, before they did the remake, because it seemed to me that it was like tied up more with Activision and Rare. Like, Rare owned the code for the game, obviously, and then Activision owned the rights to publish James Bond games. But I don't know if Nintendo was actually, like, did Nintendo like actually own something of like specifically the rights to a GoldenEye game based off of the actual GoldenEye movie, because I know there was like the GoldenEye game for the PS2 that was sort of a spin-off that just like kind of shared the name mainly, and like it was because there was a guy who literally had a golden, like the main character literally had a golden eye, so like it was like very loosely related to the actual movie or even the game. It was just trying to cash in on that. So like on that level, like that wasn't that may have been published on the GameCube, but like it was like a multi-platform game. So I really wonder kind of just why GoldenEye had to only come out on the Wii initially. Like, if it literally was Nintendo like owned the rights to like anything based off of the first GoldenEye movie, you know, somehow that had to be worked out, and like they had a deal with Nintendo where like they'd put it on the Wii first, and then eventually they might be able to port it to other consoles. Because that was kind of strange. And the Wii console seems like a strange place to put like any kind of first-person shooter, you know, on it, because I mean they made it work somehow, and it actually kind of paid off because they were able to port Call of Duty to the Wii, which, you know, I'm pretty sure probably just used the same engine and tech that was made for GoldenEye, because, you know, at least in terms of like the control scheme, like, because that was like probably the biggest hurdle to getting any kind of first-person shooter or most like ports of games onto the Wii, is because you have to figure out, well, how you're going to make the controls work when you have a radically different input device, you know. But I digress. N64. So, GoldenEye unlikely to happen. Perfect Dark probably even less likely to happen, because, like, they don't own that game at all, I think, at this point. There's a slight chance they might be able to do Perfect Dark. Like, at the very least, I would say Perfect Dark might be more likely, just in the sense that I think they're kind of, maybe in the end of the day, it kind of evens out, like in terms of like them both being equal and likely, because well, if GoldenEye, like, I don't know, like it's hard to judge which one's more unlikely to make an appearance, but I think they're probably like equally unlikely in their own way. Perfect Dark might be less unlikely just because like it is just like Rare and Microsoft, and you know, like that's the only people they had to work it out with, and considering that Microsoft hasn't even done anything of Perfect Dark recently, and considering that Nintendo isn't exactly much of a competitor with Microsoft right now anyway, it seems like it may even be more likely in some regards than GoldenEye, just because GoldenEye is like a freeway, you know, split. Like, Rare needs to get a slice of that pie, and, you know, by extension Microsoft, then potentially Activision or whoever like owns the rights to publishing James Bond games right now. I don't know if anyone owns the rights to James Bond games right currently, but even then, even if Activision doesn't own some exclusive right to it, they still have to go through MGM or whoever. I think it was like Sony at one point. So like it would be, it'd actually be weird, like if Sony like got like reacquired the James Bond license, then you'd be paying Sony and Microsoft, like you'd be paying both of your game competitors. Like, just imagine that, like, you know, if Sony still like had the James Bond rights, like they would have to be paying both Sony and Microsoft technically to publish a GoldenEye game on like Virtual Console or you know, a N64 Classic Edition. Like, that would be wild. That would be absolutely wild. That would be totally bonkers. But yeah, Perfect Dark seems just likely because they had to just work it out with Microsoft basically, to get it on there, and they haven't really done anything with Perfect Dark. This could even be a way to bring that game back into the limelight. So if Microsoft says, like, hey, let's make a new Perfect Dark game, we'll have it like on the N64 Classic, and people will become aware of the game again, and it will give them some synergy to make a new installment in the series. Like, it could work. Like, they could potentially cut a deal there. Like, I imagine it would be again just a little more likely. Donkey Kong 64, I'm pretty sure they can do. Like, they worked out for the Wii U, so they could almost certainly negotiate something for a N64 Classic, I would hope. Banjo-Kazooie, again, like, Microsoft hasn't done anything with it in a while, so there's a chance that they might at least be able to get one of the two games on there, probably the original, not Tui. Diddy Kong Racing, again, they have to negotiate something. They could potentially do some sort of package deal even. Again, I think it would be beneficial for Microsoft to not just like for the cut of profit they can get, but just for, hey, like, let's get those series back in the public eye, and maybe we could make a new game. It's advertising that you're actually being paid for, getting a free advertising, and then you get like some royalty fees on top of that. Like, I think it could work. I don't know if we would see all of the games on there. We definitely would not see Conker's Bad Fur Day. Like, not in a million years. Like, they're not going to put an M-rated game on. Like, the worst we're probably going to see is potentially Turok. Turok would probably be the one first-person shooter that we could potentially see on an N64 Classic. Maybe one of the few third-party games that you would see on the N64 Classic, since the third-party games were kind of sparse. Especially like quality third-party games, and I think a lot of the ones that are like notable are actually like Quake, Doom, Duke Nukem. Like, you're not gonna see any of those on the N64 Classic. I highly doubt it. Like, yeah, no way. I just don't. I don't think it's gonna happen. Like, having to pay the licensing fees to a third-party company. I don't know about the Castlevania 64 games. Those, like, really kind of sucked. There's a possibility. Shadowgate 64 could potentially. I think Shadowgate was actually kind of a good game. Just from my remember anyway. I have to look for the... Let's actually go and look through the library of a list of N64 games. And I think here we go. 1080 snowboarding, possibly. That is a first party game. It'd be interesting to actually release Animal Crossing, or the original Animal Crossing, as part of it. Like, that could kind of be interesting, as sort of their exclusive, game that they include. Maybe we include on it. Like, that could be kind of cool. I maybe sort of doubt it, but it's possible. There's the Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie. Again, there could be a slight chance that they'll do something with that. Battlezone is kind of a recognizable thing. I don't know how good that game was, though. There's Blast Corps. That was developed by Rare. I don't know who would own the rights to that exactly. Bomberman 64. There's a chance that that could end up on there actually. There's apparently a sequel, although yeah, it actually came out too. I didn't know they made a sequel to. They actually made like 3 different Bomberman games. Well, actually, the first one wasn't released in the States, so I guess what we got as Bomberman 64 may have actually been Bomberman 64 2. Let me look this up. I want to. The packaging they show is still the second attack. It's just that it doesn't list it as having been released in North America. Oh, it's about the 2001 Japanese game. Okay, so I think the person who. That's weird. 2001. Yeah, I think they have some confusing. Hey, there's like a fourth Bomberman game released only in Japan in 2001. Like that would surprise me. That like it never came out here because I think the GameCube was probably just around the corner in 2001 if it wasn't already out. So they probably, like Nintendo, especially in America, is like just notorious about dropping their old consoles. Like like nobody's business or something. Bottom of the ninth, possibly Konami. So, Bust Move 2 Arcade Edition, or even Bust Move 99. Those are kind of there's like the 2 Castlevania games that were released on there, which weren't very well received. Some people might actually enjoy them, so it could throw them in. But yeah, Clay Fighter could work. Like, you know, if you're gonna put a fighting game on there, it would probably have to be Clay Fighter because that's like the only fighting game that's maybe any good. Although I'm not sure how actually good Clay Fighter 63 and a third actually is. There's of course the cruising games, USA, World, and Exotica. Diddy Kong Racing, maybe, although, you know, again, they had to work out some rights issues with, or probably, I imagine they just work out the rights issues, mainly. Of course, there's Donkey Kong 64, which is, you know, a possibility, probably the only rare game that, like, would be almost certain to get on there. Of course, there's Dr. Mario 64, which I don't think I've really played, but like, you know, if you're gonna put a puzzle game on there, probably Dr. Mario would be a good choice. Duke Nukem, again, very unlikely. Earthworm Jim wasn't that well received. Excitebike 64, probably. F-Zero X, probably. Gauntlet Legends, perhaps. I don't know how good that is, but There's the Gex games on there, could potentially see those. GoldenEye again, very unlikely. Perhaps even more unlikely than Perfect Dark. Harvest Moon 64, maybe, I don't know. Hexen, again, an M-rated game. Hey You Pikachu, fairly unlikely just because I don't think they're going to stick in like a microphone peripheral just for one game. Hydro Thunder, maybe, it's a possibility. Killer Instinct Gold, unlikely. Of course, Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, those are almost totally going to be on there if they make it. Lego Racers could be cool. Not sure. That seems like it could also be too many people to split the royalties between. Magical Tetris Challenge. Didn't hear about that. Like I heard of Tetris Sphere, but I don't think I heard of Magical Tetris Challenge. Now I gotta look it up. Oh well, that's interesting. There's a Mickey Mouse themed Tetris game that came out on N64. I didn't know that. Again, that would probably be way too many people to split the rights between. So I doubt that, especially with freaking Disney. Mario Golf, more likely. Mario 64, pretty likely. Mario Party, I don't know if they're going to include all three, but maybe. Mario Tennis, Mega Man 64 could be. It's possible. Mischief Bakers, possibly. I think I've heard some good things about that. It sounds, the title seems familiar. Mortal Kombat Mythologies and Trilogy 4. None of those games are probably going to be on there at all. Miss Pac-Man Maze Madness, maybe. Namco Museum 64. I doubt they'd include a compilation on the compilation. That would be too much compilation-ception. There's a bunch of NBA games. That's probably too much licensing. Neo Genesis Evangelion. That was there's a new Tetris. That probably would be the one to include. I don't think Tetris Sphere was particularly well received. Off-Road Challenge, I remember enjoying the arcade game. Paper Mario, probably. Paperboy 64, again, that wasn't very well received. Perfect Dark, again, it seems slightly more likely than GoldenEye, if only because they wouldn't have to split the rights as broadly across as many people. You know, Pokemon Snap. Yeah, I think that's Pilot Wing 64 could be on there. Pokemon Stadium. Don't know. That seems kind of unlikely just because of the interactivity with the Game Boy games would really translate. Granted, it may not have been like an essential feature, but I don't know how they would lock out the option, maybe, or yeah, I don't know how that would work. You know, because there'd still be like potentially something in the menu or something that would like you just would be able to use. There's the Quake games again, M-rated, probably not gonna be on there at all. Quest 64, not likely. Rampage, the Rampage World Tour and the sequel are possible. Ready to Rumble Boxing, potentially. Ridge Racer 64 is also possible. Road Rash 64, don't know. Robotron 64 could be. There's like the San Francisco Rush stuff. Shellygate 64, again, I kind of like to see that on there. There's No More Kids. South Park, very unlikely. Not only the game sucked, but it's it's South Park. Even if it's tamer compared to the cartoon, I don't think Nintendo would want to negotiate the license for that. when it's not, it doesn't fit with their family friendly. Space Station in Silicon Valley, I heard of it, but I don't know if that's likely. Star Fox 64 probably would be on there. The Star Wars stuff, I like to see it on there. But again, licensing fees. I mean, it would be fairly straightforward. Although they may have to, there probably would have to be something with EA because I think they own the exclusive rights, and I mean, there is a precedent for it with Traveler's Tales being allowed to do The Force Awakens, but yeah, like, that would just be another hoop to pass through, and I don't think Nintendo would think it would be worth it. Even though Rogue Squadron is like considered to be one of the definitive, like a classic Star Wars game. Like if they're going to include any Star Wars game on there, it would probably be Rogue Squadron. Episode 1 Racer was a pretty good game, but yeah. Super Mario 64 definitely would be on there. Smash Brothers definitely would be on there. Superman, no. It's not going to happen. Tamagotchi 64, possible. Tetris 64, there was actually a Tetris 64. Although it was only released in Japan. There's Tetris Sphere, which I don't believe was received very well. I could look it up to see like what the reception was like. It did sell pretty well, even though there's very little advertising. It's freaking Tetris. Apparently, it's listed number 50 on the 100 best Nintendo games of all time in Nintendo Power. So, it's I got a message from Aaron. Aaron's at garage selling. You got a Deadpool for PS4 for $4. That's a pretty good deal. Pretty damn good deal. Like, that's a pretty damn good game. From what I heard, I haven't actually played it yet. So I don't know what the review scores are actually pretty good for Tetrisphere. So there's a potential that Tetrisphere could end up on there. I was thinking I might like eventually just emulate at some point too. Talking about Pro Skater, that's way too many rights to go around. There's the Top Gear stuff. Again, I'm actually more familiar with the Top Gear games on the SNES than F-Zero. I don't know how likely that is, just given that that Top Gear is like now, like it's a TV show like on BBC, and I don't think the games had anything to do with it, but there may be some rights issues there. I'm not sure how that would work. Like, a game that coincidentally has a show that's like that shares the same name, but came later. How would that work? I mean, I think with trademark law, I think it might actually work in favor of the show, to be honest, because I think trademarks like expire if you don't renew them or don't use them at all for a good amount of time, and you would own the copyright on Top Gear, but I don't think the trademark would necessarily stick. I think the only thing you could do is like whether or not there's any like chance that you could do something with yeah, I don't know how it will work legally, but they might make some sort of like Top Gear app or something, if they haven't already, and that could be placed under interactive entertainment, and there could be some conflict there. There's a Toy Story 2. Again, it's like another rights holder that you have to jump through. But it's two rights holders. Like there's Activision, Triwar's Tales, Activision published Triwar's Tales that created it, and then there's Disney. So it's like a free-way split at least, for just freaking rights. So yeah, like movie licensed games unlikely in any case to be on any of these, except potentially Star Wars, just because that is a big enough thing that it'd be expensive, but it could potentially be worth it. Whereas Toy Story, it's a big IP, but it's not Star Wars. Turok, possible. Those I think were Actually, Turok was rated M. I thought some of them were rated T, but actually they were all rated M. They were exclusive to the N64, and they are a little tame compared to modern games, but there's a slight chance that that's not going to happen. Again, Perfect Dark. If they're going to put any kind of first-person shooter on there, it probably would be Perfect Dark. That is, again, if they could work out something with Rare and Microsoft to get the rights. There's Vigilante 8, possibility. Probably not Virtual Chess or Virtual Pool, very unlikely. Virtual Pro Wrestling, could happen. Although it's Japan, so it's Japan only, so I kind of doubt it. But there's a bunch of WCW and probably WWF games on there. I think there's maybe only WCW, although I think there were worse than WWF. That's probably further down the list. Wipeout 64? I'm pretty sure Wipeout is owned by Sony at this point, so no. I'm predicting no. And besides, F-Zero would fill that niche anyway. There's Yoshi's Story, which is probably likely. So yeah, I think the majority of games you see on an N64 Classic would be first party. Maybe a handful of third party stuff. But a lot of it is gonna have some of the best stuff on there that I can think of a hand would have licensing stuff, like Tony Hawk, would be good, but you have to get the license from the game from Activision, and then you have to get the license for Tony Hawk and its likeness, and for the likeness of all the other skaters that are featured in there. It would be a mess. Highly doubtful that they would allow that. There was SimCity 2000 on there. I don't know if that would be really worth including, but Ridge Racer 64 maybe. There are a few third-party games, but there may only a couple that would be really worth getting the licensing and such for. Anyway, the other thing we're talking about is that it's probably a little more likely we would see a Game Boy Classic, possibly. Maybe even with HDMI support, maybe with some sort of controller support. Although I think in order to allow you to hook up controllers to it, you'd have to probably make it about the actual size or at least thickness of an actual Game Boy. It could eventually. I would like it if they included support for Game Boy Color games as well. I'm not sure if it would be that much more expensive. It might actually be cheaper to make it support Game Boy Color games as well, just because it'd be easier to just do a color screen, because that tech is probably going to be cheaper to manufacture. If they're going to have a built-in screen at all, which I would think would be a good idea. yeah, that's kind of my prediction. Is that like the next thing you probably would see would be a Game Boy Classic or something like that. Possibly including Game Boy Color. I think it'd be cheaper for them to actually create a full color screen than to try to actually replicate the Game Boy's black and white display. Again, because these sorts of things just aren't mass produced out there, so it'd be cutting more corners by just having a color screen. So they might as well allow for Game Boy Color emulation on top of regular Game Boy emulation, especially considering that like the controls are literally the same. MIDI games, worked across both platforms, and there are a few exclusive games that only worked on the Game Boy Color. Unless they wanted to, squeeze more money out of it by having a separate Game Boy Color Classic in addition to a regular Game Boy Classic. Yeah. I would say that like if they do an N64 Classic, that it probably would be the last of the classic combo consoles, just because GameCube is way too new, and it definitely doesn't have like the same nostalgia factor, and the games are a bit larger too, and some of them went across multiple discs. It's better to do that like on the emulation on the Switch anyway. So, and Wii Classic definitely going to be like a couple of decades before you even see a Wii Classic as a thing. So yeah, my prediction is that we may be more likely to see a Game Boy Classic before we see an N64 Classic. But we'll have to see. I think someone standing next to us talk about how like the games are much bigger and how they fit it on the memory, and I'm like, well, there's like room to spare, like even on the base hardware that they include on these things. So yeah. See, I've gone talking long enough. We've got an hour and a half, which is actually my average live stream lately. For like a game, I'm spending it talking about, like rambling about, predictions for future stuff and my thoughts on the SNES. SNES is definitely like a lot more nostalgic to me than even the NES. That's another thing I wanted to talk about. Like, it's kind of interesting because like the NES was like my first console that at least I remember. I also had a Commodore 64, which is like my first computer. But yeah, and the SNES like was kind of like the NES was my early childhood, and like the SNES was like my mid childhood. Like it was like a bit more prominent, I think, in my childhood overall. To be, I think it was maybe probably at least in 3rd grade. I think. I don't know what grade I was in. I may have been 4th grade when I got the SNES. Yeah, I don't know. It may have been like I think it was pretty soon after it came out. Shortly after it came out, though. So it'd be like within a year or so after it came out. So it may have been, like I'm not completely sure when I got a SNES. I think it came out in ~92, which is when I would have been in 2nd grade. I think we moved. I'm pretty sure we were in our like much substantially larger apartment, which I really qualified as an apartment. Like it was a big. We had more space in our apartment back when we lived in a much smaller town. Not really a small town, but it was smallish. It didn't have like a major university in it, like we have here. Yeah, we had an apartment, and it was like a lot larger than the apartment we had when we moved here, and it was by far like bigger than this actual like full home we own currently. So it's yeah. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But yeah, like I'm pretty sure it was in that place that I got the Super Nintendo. So I think we may have moved there in like '93 or '94. So it may have actually been like 1 or 2 years after this SNES came out that I actually got one. But I'm not really sure. It didn't feel like there was that long a gap, like where I really wanted it and then finally got it. But it may have been. And again, I'm not sure if we still have bad tape or if it's still like in working condition that where we could actually rip it onto a into a digital file. So yeah. Anyway, I rambled on long enough, but yeah, of course, this just has better games in general, like not just graphically, but like gameplay wise, and just technically, a lot of the games are much better. And it's got all the JRPGs. But anyway, thanks for watching. We go into our. I even rolled the intro. We'll roll the intro as the outro. In this case, although it isn't Pixels Plays technically this time, it's Pixels Unboxes, so I don't have a special symbol for unboxing. But anyway, thanks for watching. Follow us on Twitter. Support us on Patreon. It definitely helps, especially now that we don't really have any monetization. Although the monetization really didn't help at all when I had it. So, also, there's a link in the description to my Steam wishlist, and I will, if there's a game on there that you really like to see me play, if you gift it to me, I will most certainly play it. You can also recommend in the comments like a game that you like to see me play, and I can actually add it to my wishlist, and you don't have to give it to me personally, but but otherwise, you just have to hope that someone else sees it on there and wants to see me play it even more than you do, because to the extent where they actually would buy the game for me. But yeah, top of the list right now is Battlegrounds. Not that this is a game I most want to play, but it's a game that will possibly allow me to get the views I need to get monetization back up and running in a much shorter time. But again, it's not. I've said before, it's not the kind of game I think I'd really enjoy. But it might surprise me. But it's not to the. I'm not confident enough that it will surprise me. That I'm gonna shell out a full $30 for it. So, any contributions will be greatly appreciated, and you'll have my thanks. I might even make it so at least at the early stage, anyone who makes any contribution to Patreon will get some kind of shout out. I'm thinking I might change the tiers a little bit, at least temporarily for now, where like anyone who donates anything in my Patreon will get some kind of credit if they desire it, because every little bit helps. So I just hadn't done anything on my Patreon for a while, and apologies to the one person who contributed $1 for 1 month. I need to get on top of actually, updating and like maybe posting some title cards and like surveys and things that I was planning on doing. So anyway, as always, LCS and DFTB, I will see you in my next live stream, which will hopefully be a bit later today. We may even just do a stream where I'm browsing through the SNES Classic. I just have to figure out where to plug it in, is the main concern right now. So yeah, until then, bye bye.